everyone, and thank you so much for joining me for Daily Spark with Dr. Angela. I am your host, Dr. Angela Chester. You know what I like to do on my show? Say it with me. I want to enlighten, inspire, and empower you to become your best self. Now, Scripture reminds us that the tongue is a small thing that makes grand speeches, but a tiny spark can set a great forest on fire. And today we want you fired up about our guest. We will be talking with S.T. Holmes today. She is the author of the book Creole Moon, Book of Roots. So go on, get comfy, get cozy, get your coffee or get your tea, because we are about to get started. Hello, Suzanne. Thank you so much for joining me here today on Daily Spark with Dr. Angela.
Hi, Dr. Angela. How you doing?
I am well, and I want to say welcome back to the show. I am so glad that you are able to join me today.
Love being here. Love talking to you.
Thank you, and I love having you on. You are such a joy to speak with, and I'm so glad that we're able to make this connection again. Now, for those of you who have been longtime listeners of the show, she was on, years ago talking about her book, and I'm so glad that she's able to come on today. But, I have, and just to clear this up for some new folks, I will be calling her ST so that you will remember to find the book under ST Holmes when you go to find it at your local bookstore or even on Amazon. So just to make that little snippet there. So ST, Suzanne, I am going to ask you this. We have new listeners that we are sharing your book with today, and I can't wait to talk to you about this new title. With that being said, can you tell us a little bit about you? What makes you, you?
What makes me tick? I'm a unique, strange individual. I grew up in New Orleans, and I listened to crazy stories about voodoo and swamps and spells, and I'm always attracted to that kind of stuff. And so my mom used to tell me all the time, she says, "You're a little strange." And I would sit and dream up things and try to figure out a new spin on stuff, and I did that even as an adult. And it just got to the point that I would just spin stories just in the air. My kids told me, "Mom, why don't you sit down and write?" And here I am. I'm sitting here putting these weirdo ideas down on paper here. I'm trying to weave a story around them.
Well, I think that one of the things that most people find true is that there's a little bit of oddness, a little weirdness, a little eccentricities. There's a little bit of that in everyone that's a genius, right? Everyone who has done something that is spectacular. We say, well, that person's a little different. And in that difference, that's what makes that person unique. That's what has given them that think outside of the box point of view. So I love it. I love it. Absolutely. We all don't need to be beige. The world would be boring if everything was beige. So I love it. I love it. Now, being an author, is that something that that maybe perhaps in the back of your mind, now that we have, 20/20 hindsight, do you think that it was in the back of your mind at any point, or did you kind of take your kids' advice and say, I do need to put this imagination of mine, this way of thinking down in words for others to be able to share as well?
Well, Dr. Angela, performing arts has always been a part of my life. I started playing piano when I was in third grade or 8 years old. I started playing guitar when I was in high school and violin when I was in college. But while I was in high school, I also got hooked on plays and writing plays and reading plays, and I was a part of the drama club. And so that was something that I always did, and I actually would write poems. And so it was something that I did to kind of keep my sanity. And then when my children were born, things, and you get into the professional world and you realize, wait a minute, I have to have a roof over my head and, food in my tummy and clothes on my back. So this performing arts thing is not, I didn't want to be a starving artist. So I went to school and got my medical certification and an accounting degree. But the writing has always been on the back burner. So I pretty much put it on hold to raise my children. But after they got to the point where they were self-sufficient, I decided, let me go back into this. Now, I've always been an avid reader. I never put the reading part aside. I just put the writing aside. So now I can actually read and write and try to satisfy that creative side of my brain.
Mm-hmm. And I tell you, when we try to walk in our purpose, and my listeners have heard me say, the way that I phrase it is when we walk in and on purpose. So when we are doing that thing that God has called us to do, then we love what we're doing. It doesn't mean that it's always easy. It doesn't mean that we always necessarily have the answer, but we're willing to go through the struggles, right? We're willing to go through those rough patches because we understand that this is what we're supposed to do. So I totally understand that. Now, the title of the book, Creole Moon, Book of Roots. Can you tell us about the title?
Okay. Well, let me first start. The book first was going to be called Voodoo Moon because I wanted to play a little bit on the religious aspect. Again, growing up in New Orleans, we went to a Catholic school, and so religion was very much a part of my life. And as you get older, you start realizing some things I will adopt and some things I won't accept. So Catholicism, while I was brought up in that area, there are some things I decided I accepted and some things I decided to reject. But in my writing, I realized that there was a way that I could combine the voodoo and the Catholicism into my writing to make a creative story, as well as Greek and Roman mythology, because taking Latin, because Mass was always in Latin, taking Latin also helped me bring in the Greek and Roman mythologies. I will say, though, my first publisher was a little skittish of the name Voodoo Moon. She said, oh, no, there's a lot of people in America that might feel uncomfortable and feel kind of, scared. So I said, okay, well, then I'll call it Creole Moon. It's still the same for me. And I came up with Creole Moon because my mother and I were driving down River Road. Anyone that's from New Orleans will know what River Road is. And it was during, Indian summertime, August. Big, huge, golden and orange colored moon sat in the sky. It was almost I could reach out and touch it. And I told my mother then, I said, Creole Moon. That's what we'll call this. And that's how it stuck. And now I'm in the process of creating what I call a Creole Moon series. So it's not just Book of Roots. Book of Roots is the second part, second book in the story, where the characters are actually looking to find this most powerful book of spells in the magic kingdom, and it's wrapped around, or it's merged with Mardi Gras, because New Orleans and Mardi Gras, that's a religious holiday as well. A lot of people don't think of it that way, but Mardi Gras is the part for Orleanians where we party up and it's do anything and everything that you want, because the next day it's Ash Wednesday and Lent comes in. You give up whatever that is that you value most. So you don't know about that what you value most until you party and get your fill of it, and that's what Mardi Gras Day does, Fat Tuesday. And then you now have something that for penance sake, for repentance, that you can give up for the next 40 days and 40 nights. So that's how Book of Roots came to play.
I love that. I love that. And thank you so much for explaining that. Now, one of the things, and I wanted to say that one of the things that I find that I like about your personality is that you are trying to be mindful. Unfortunately, so many people do have a negative connotation of this word called voodoo. And though they may not even know what voodoo is, they have believed what others have told them that it is. The same way, kind of like with black cats. They think that just because a black cat walks across their path that these horrible things are going to happen to them. And it's like, that poor kitty, he hasn't done anything to you. Stop putting that on that cat. So you are so right there. And I'm glad that you were open-minded enough to realize that you're right. Someone's going to think something unnecessarily negative about my book because of a word association, and that is awesome. Now, one of the things
I want the readers to actually enjoy the book, not be afraid of reading something and thinking. I want them to be able to say, "Wow, this is a creative story that I can enjoy." And yes, there is the backdrop of the swamp, and yes, there is some reference to a religious ritual act in there, but it's not the premise for the book.
Right.
That's the main thing. Yeah.
Right. And I think we have to understand that, because there are so many bits and pieces when we talk about history, even as Christians, we have to remember that there is a backdrop many times to invasions or death and dying, and all of these things. Even though we may be talking about our faith, there's been some stuff that has gone on. So we have to
in the name of religion and love.
Absolutely. So I definitely understand what you mean there. So I think that an intelligent reader will be able to enjoy the book and be able to move past that. Now, one of the things that I wanted to ask is that you have placed this book in the genre of fantasy. Why was it important to make it fantasy as opposed to any of the other available genres?
Well, I love fantasy. I love the fantasy world. One of my favorite things at Disney World was Fantasyland. Maybe it's just me, I guess. I'm into fairies. I love fairies. I actually had a fairy garden as an adult. And so I didn't want anyone to say, yes, there's a monster in here, but it's a horror. No, I'm not into horror books. I tossed up between sci-fi and fantasy. So because there may be some people that are in the sci-fi genre that would like it, but the primary part of the book is it's a fantasy world. There's magicians and there are witches and crazy things going on that would not happen in a regular world, a regular universe. Mm-hmm. And so I want people to realize that it is make-believe. And when you think of fantasy, you know it's make-believe.
Right. Right. That's why it's fantasy. It's all made up. So
make-believe.
Absolutely.
I know. I had someone ask me this. One lady read the book. I did a talk at a class at St. Edward's University. They were a creative writing class, and they looked up the character, one of the characters in the book, the Luxicon, the light beast, and who is my new type of monster. And she said, I can't find that word. I don't know what that is. And I told her, it's nothing. It's in my head. I took Latin words for candles, and I took another Latin word for beast and light, and then I started playing around with things to come up with a name, and then Luxicon came up, and I said,
it was the winner, right? I love that. No, I think that is so ingenious on your part, because in that very ingenious thing that you did. You also made it something that it isn't, and that is stop trying. And I appreciate that person trying to, be smart and understand the words that you were trying to use, but in not being able to find that word, I think that also gives people permission, kind of like what you were saying, was to simply enjoy the fantasy of it all. Like, this is not real. I'm not trying to make this in a far off realm, of a time gone by. It's like it is just a story, and to read it for exactly that. I love it. Well, Suzanne, it is. Right, it's for enjoyment. Suzanne, it is time for us to go to break. But before we do, can you remind everyone, please, what is the title of this book, and where can we get a copy, and how do we stay in contact with you?
Okay, so the book is Creole Moon, Book of Roots, the second in the series. You can find me on Facebook at Creole Moon -1. The book can be sold. It is sold on Amazon and any place that you can find books, audio and ebook, as well as on print.
Alrighty, everyone. Now you know where you can get a copy of the book. We'll be back right after this. And we are back. Thank you so much for joining me for Daily Spark with Dr. Angela. I'm your host, Dr. Angela Butchester. My guest today is S.T. Holmes, and we're talking about her book, Creole Moon, Book of Roots. Now, Suzanne, one of the questions that I have for you is that even though you talk that the book is in the genre of fantasy, one of the real things that you talk about in the book is love. And when we talk about love, when one talks about love in general, boy, do those stories range from wild and crazy to, silly and just unfathomable. But it also includes, the occasional heartbreak and heartache, and you really, your heart bleeds for the person and all they've been through. Do you address love in any way in this book? And if so, of course, you don't give it all away, because you know what I'm gonna say, listeners. You gotta buy the book. If you want to know how it ends, right? If you want to know how it ends, you got to buy the book. But how do you address love and passion and all of those in this book?
Well, again, when you think of love runs the whole emotional gambit. And so the book shows characters that are committed to a relationship. And sometimes that individual needs to be committed, but there's love and commitment, there's obsession, and it's in these characters that I portray their love, their commitment, and the crazy things that these individuals will do for love. And I will tell you, one of the main characters in the book, his name is Mamushka. He is the voodoo priest. He's a strange person, and you'll have to read what goes on. I will say one person told me, one reviewer said, that my characters are really creative and they enjoy them because I try to show you what that person is going through. I try to tell you what this person is feeling so that you can actually empathize with the characters in the book. And whether you've had a wonderful love relationship or a bad one, you'll be able to relate to the characters in the book.
And I think you are definitely right. I think that most people can agree. It's like love. Oh wow, which story do you want me to tell, and how long do you have? Because it really does take up a lot of what we do in the world today. I love it. Now, do you think that so many times we unnecessarily, when we think about Hollywood, the place, the not necessarily the city itself of walking around in Hollywood, but the film industry, Hollywood, or the concept of it all, do you think that that they are giving us a well-rounded view of what love is. I know that for many industries, there's a tendency to give you kind of a one-sided view. Do you think that they are doing a better job at showing us all of the faces of how love makes one feel?
I think they're doing better now than they used to. You know, a long time ago, Hollywood, and I guess it was because of the Depression and the war, everyone wanted to find this silver lining, this happy ending. And so we had, the fairy tale ending. They live happily ever after. But in real life, that's not the case. Everyone doesn't live happily ever after. And so Hollywood gave, I would say, my generation and my parents' generation. My parents' generation, it gave them hope. It's something to look forward to escape from their lives. My generation, and I think my children's generation, it gave them a false idea of what marriage and living happily ever after is. And I think they're doing better now. I will say Jane Austen, I love Jane Austen's books, because Jane Austen gives us a very good picture of life during this particular era and how people had to make do with whatever the situation is. So sometimes things worked out for the better in love, and other times it was like you settled or you made do with what happened. So literature and Hollywood, they've gotten better now. I think they're almost on the other end. Like, it's always going to be doom and gloom instead of, roses and rainbows. But we're going to get to the middle eventually. We'll get to that.
Right. You're really right there. Wow. I tell you, we have to really be careful what we are looking at and spending our time on, which leads me to my next question, and that is this thing called forever love. I know that before we were introduced to an idea of love at first sight. We remember those movies where people would say, I saw her or I saw him and I knew they were the one at first sight, right? And it kind of goes a little bit to that happily ever after. But many people are saying, I didn't know that they were the one, upon first sight, but I do love them, and it is a very deep love. With the divorce rate being as high as it is for Christians included, it's extremely high. Do you think that we still have this forever love, that we can still do this until death do we part thing?
I think we are evolving to try to find out what is forever love. I chuckled when someone else asked me that question, and I said, I equate forever love with the book Stephanie Meyers wrote, Twilight, where that little girl, Bella Swan, said she wanted to become a vampire so she could marry Edward Cullen. I said, that's forever, because becoming a vampire or immortal, you're going to live forever. That's forever love. Is that what people are looking for? Because, that's not going to happen in real life.
Right.
Forever love is something that's in our head, and I don't really think that it's in the beginning. It may be love, that lightning bolt hits, and to me that's a chemistry, a lust kind of feeling. That was the other word I didn't bring in, lust. That you look at each other and say, "Oh wow, I'm head over heels in love with this person," and I'm sitting here thinking that's head over heels in lust with this person. And then you have to grow to learn that person. You have to grow, and I really don't know if that's love or you just grow to accept the individual for who and what they are. So is love, forever love, an acceptance, or is it really a feeling? Makes you think.
I see where you're going. Absolutely. And I think that when we talk to some of our grandparents or even some of our parents that have been married for not just double digits, but for our lifetime, right? However old we are plus some. One of the things that I find that they say is that you have to get over yourself and what you think that person is going to do or who you think they're going to be, and love them for the person that stands before you. So I think you're on to something there.
No projections, just here is what's standing in front of me, and I am going to accept whatever this is or whoever this is in front of me.
Yeah. I think it helps us understand, just having this conversation, it helps us understand that loving someone unconditionally and how God loves us unconditionally, even when we mess up, when we're good, when we're bad, when we're quiet, when we're loud, when we're acting mature or childishly, God still loves us. And if we could only view the person that we say that we love like that, then that will help us see them the way that God sees them. I love it. I love it. Well, Suzanne, you have definitely given us a challenge today, and I love that. So before I let you go, can you remind everyone, please, and thank you again for being on the show, what is the title of this book? Where can we get a copy, and how do we stay in contact with you?
Okay, Creole Moon, Book of Roots. It's you can contact me on Facebook. It's at Creole Moon 1. The book is sold anywhere. Books are sold, ebook, audiobook, and online, obviously Amazon and Barnes & Noble. And I have a website. It's called and it's SuzanneTropaz.com.
Thank you again, Suzanne, for being a guest here on Daily Spark with Dr. Angela.
Absolutely.
And listeners, thank you for spending time with us here as well. Now, a quick note, remember, when you're looking for the book, Creole Moon, Book of Roots, it's under the name S.T. Holmes. That's S.T. Holmes. Alrighty. Now I want to say thank you so much for spending time with us here today. You could have been anywhere, but you chose to spend it with me, and I appreciate that. I hope that we have enlightened, inspired, and empowered you again today. As always, may the Lord continue to shine His face upon you. May you receive His grace and His mercy in all that you do. Until next time, everyone, remember that you are blessed in the Lord. Have a great day, everyone. Bye-bye.